In 2011, Netflix had a problem most companies would have killed to have. Its business was working, millions of customers were paying every month, the brand was growing, and the DVD operation was profitable. Netflix had built one of the most convenient ways to rent movies in America, and then it decided to make that business less important. It raised prices, separated DVDs from streaming, and announced a new company called Quickster. Customers revolted, cancellations surged, growth slowed, and Netflix damaged a reputation it had spent more than a decade building. So why would a company deliberately put its best business at risk? The answer begins with something Netflix had already understood years earlier. The DVD business wasn't failing, it was succeeding, and that was precisely what made the decision so difficult. Because the better that business became, the harder it would be to convince the company to build its replacement. In 1998, Netflix began renting DVDs through the mail. The idea was simple, but the business model was radically different from traditional video rental. Customers didn't have to drive to a store, choose from whatever happened to be on a shelf, or worry about late fees. By 1999, Netflix had eliminated due dates and late fees from its subscription model, allowing customers to build a queue online, receive movies at home, watch them, send them back, and wait for the next one. Netflix had turned movie rental into a subscription, and then it added something even more powerful: personalization. Its recommendation technology helped customers discover movies they might never have searched for themselves, while the company's huge catalog could reach consumers without requiring thousands of physical stores. The result was a business that became remarkably efficient. By 2009, Netflix was shipping roughly 2 million discs every day across the United States. Think about what that means. The company wasn't trying to escape a broken business. It had built a machine. Its distribution network created scale, its subscription model created recurring revenue, and its recommendation system helped turn an enormous catalog into something customers could actually navigate. But the DVD operation created another advantage that was easy to underestimate. Netflix wasn't simply renting physical objects, it was building a direct relationship with millions of customers. Every rental generated information about what people wanted to watch, while every month of subscription created another opportunity to keep them inside the Netflix ecosystem. And every DVD Netflix shipped contained a warning. The movie was still trapped inside a piece of plastic, while the internet was making that plastic unnecessary. Netflix could keep improving its DVD operation, but it couldn't change the underlying fact that the distribution technology itself was eventually going to change. In 2007, Netflix launched streaming. At first, it wasn't a replacement for DVDs, it was a bonus, allowing customers to watch selected content instantly on computers and, increasingly, through televisions, game consoles, Blu-ray players, and other connected devices. Netflix was now building two businesses at once. One moved movies through the mail, while the other moved them through the internet. And for a while, that was an extraordinary combination. Netflix could keep the economics of the established DVD business while gradually teaching customers to consume content in a completely different way. The company didn't have to convince everyone to abandon DVDs overnight. It could introduce the future while the present was still paying the bills. By 2010, Netflix had surpassed 20 million subscribers, and more than half of its members were already watching streaming content. The direction was becoming clear, but knowing where the future was going didn't mean Netflix could afford to get there. Streaming needed more content, more devices, more infrastructure, and enormous amounts of money. This is where the economics of the transformation become important. The DVD business was relatively mature, predictable, and capable of generating attractive economics at scale. Streaming was the opposite. Netflix had to spend heavily on content and technology before the new model could produce the same kind of economic power. The old business was helping finance the new one. That created a dangerous choice. Move too slowly, and someone else could own the future. Move too quickly, and the company could damage the business paying for the transition. Netflix wasn't deciding whether to replace something that had already failed. It was deciding whether to weaken something that was still working. By 2011, Netflix was running out of room between those two choices. The company had surpassed 20 million subscribers, streaming consumption was accelerating, and international expansion had begun. Netflix was no longer simply a DVD company experimenting with the internet. It was becoming an internet company that still happened to have a DVD business. That distinction sounds subtle, but it wasn't. Eventually, Netflix would have to decide which version of itself it was willing to protect. And in 2011, it made the choice. Netflix separated DVD by mail and streaming into different plans, meaning customers who wanted both would pay more. Then came Quickster. The DVD business would receive a separate name and a separate website. From inside Netflix, the logic was understandable because the company believed the streaming business needed room to move faster, while DVD could continue operating independently. In fact, Netflix's leadership publicly defended the strategic logic. The company said the split would allow the DVD operation to focus on execution while enabling the global streaming business to move faster. In other words, Qwikster wasn't supposed to destroy the old business. It was supposed to isolate it so the new business could accelerate. But customers weren't buying a long-term strategy. They were buying convenience. Suddenly, convenience had become more complicated. Higher prices, 2 services, a new name, and a new website. The company that had spent years removing friction from movie rental had suddenly added friction of its own. The reaction was severe, and Netflix reported that the response to the pricing changes, and, to a lesser degree, the Qwikster announcement was very negative, leading to significant customer cancellations and weaker new subscriber additions. Then Reed Hastings admitted that the company had damaged its reputation and stalled domestic growth. Qwikster was abandoned. But this is where the story takes its first unexpected turn. Netflix had backed away from the decision, but it had not backed away from the future. The company still believed streaming was where the business was going. In a September 2011 shareholder letter, Netflix said it remained convinced that separating the services was the right long-term strategic choice, even as it lowered its domestic subscriber expectations. So Netflix did something that sounds contradictory. It retreated from the transition while accelerating the destination. It continued investing heavily in streaming content, and in October, the company said it had more than doubled its domestic spending on streaming content compared with the previous year. And that created the next problem. Netflix could control how people watched, but it couldn't fully control what they watched. Much of its library belonged to other companies, which meant licensing agreements could expire, prices could rise, and content could disappear. Netflix could have millions of customers and still depend on studios to decide which movies and shows those subscribers could watch. Streaming had solved distribution, but it had not solved control. That vulnerability wasn't theoretical. Content providers were themselves powerful businesses with their own strategies, customers, and economics. Netflix needed attractive programming to keep subscribers, but the companies that owned that programming had every reason to negotiate for the highest possible value. And that meant Netflix was still vulnerable. If the company wanted to become the center of television, it couldn't depend forever on everyone else for the television. So Netflix made another bet. Instead of simply licensing someone else's content, it would begin creating and controlling content of its own. In 2012 came original programming such as Lilyhammer, followed by projects including House of Cards. Netflix didn't just announce the shows, it also began experimenting with a different way of releasing television. Lilyhammer would make all 8 episodes of its first season available at once, giving viewers control over how quickly they watched. At first, this might have looked like a content decision, but it was much bigger than that. Netflix was changing its position in the entire entertainment chain. It had started by controlling distribution through the mail, then controlled digital distribution, and now it was beginning to control the content itself. A Netflix original could become an exclusive reason to subscribe, remain on the platform rather than being rented from another distributor, and reduce Netflix's dependence on the companies supplying its library. The transformation was becoming visible. DVD had created Netflix, streaming was making DVD less important, and original programming was beginning to make Netflix less dependent on the companies supplying its streaming library. Netflix wasn't making one transformation, it was making a series of them. And each transformation weakened the importance of the advantage that came before it. First, Netflix changed the way people rented movies, then it changed the way those movies were delivered. Then it began changing who controlled what people watched. Each step made the previous version of Netflix less necessary. That is the hidden logic behind the entire story. Netflix wasn't simply moving from one technology to another. It was repeatedly making its own previous advantage less valuable. And that brings us back to Qwikster. Qwikster is easy to remember as a corporate disaster, and it was. But the failure reveals something much bigger about the way Netflix was thinking. The company wasn't trying to preserve the business it had built. It was trying to make sure that the business it had built could survive a change in the world. Those are very different objectives. Netflix had tried to move customers into the future faster than customers were willing to move, and it learned the hard way that a company can be strategically right and operationally wrong at exactly the same time. But Netflix didn't abandon the transformation. It adjusted, kept investing, kept expanding streaming, and kept moving toward original content. And importantly, it left the DVD business alive while gradually reducing its importance. In fact, Netflix didn't finally shut down DVDs until September 29, 2023, 25 years after the company had started mailing them. That detail changes the way we should remember the entire story. Netflix didn't destroy the DVD business in 2011. It stopped allowing the DVD business to determine what Netflix would become. The red envelope survived for another 12 years, while the company built something that no longer needed it. So why was Netflix willing to risk its best business for a future that wasn't guaranteed? Because protecting the existing business was never the ultimate objective. Protecting Netflix was. The DVD business had created the customers, resources, infrastructure, and experience that made the next transformation possible. But Netflix understood something most successful companies struggle to accept. A business can be profitable and still have an expiration date. A product can be loved and still become obsolete. An advantage can become a trap precisely because it is so valuable today. And sometimes the biggest threat to a company's future isn't a competitor taking its customers. It's the company becoming too comfortable with the thing those customers already love. Netflix's greatest decision wasn't launching streaming, Quickster, or even creating original content. It was accepting that the company could not remain successful by remaining the same company. That's why this story isn't really about DVDs, and it isn't really about streaming. It's about cannibalization. The willingness to make your own advantage less valuable before the market makes it irrelevant for you. Netflix got parts of that process badly wrong. Quickster damaged trust, customers left, and the company had to retreat. But the retreat was temporary. The direction wasn't. And that may be the most important distinction in the entire story. Companies rarely fail simply because they cannot see the future. They fail because the present gives them too many reasons to stay where they are. Netflix had one of the strongest reasons imaginable. Its old business was working. Instead of protecting it forever, Netflix gradually made that business obsolete. Not because the DVD business was bad, but because Netflix understood that one day, being excellent at the old business would no longer be enough. The hardest business decision isn't knowing when to change. It's deciding what you're willing to make obsolete before the market makes it obsolete for you.